Greetings, and welcome to the second episode of Outside the Cage. I'm your host, Larken Rose. Now, what we discuss here relates to political philosophy, but this show is pretty much the antithesis of just about every other political talk show out there. You could say this is the anti-political talk show. There's certainly no shortage of shows on which political advocates vehemently pontificate at great length about why their political party or their political agenda is the road to salvation, and that the other party is the road to doom and gloom. Talking heads of all political stripes preach this, trying to impress on you that you should join their club, be on their team. And if you don't bow to whatever political gods they want you to worship, Republican, Democrat, whatever, they will condemn you as being not only gullible and stupid, but possibly also malicious and evil. So they implore you to throw your support in votes and dollars behind the would-be saviors that they offer. Vote for us, put us into power, and we'll protect you. We'll take care of you. We'll save the world. That is the message of all political parties and all of the pundits and talking heads who support them. That's the message they're always trying to sell. Salvation via politics. Well, on this show, Outside the Cage, the goal is not to convince you to empower any politician or any political party. Quite the opposite. The goal here is to help you empower yourself by helping you to escape the rhetoric and the propaganda from all political parties that is designed to deceive you into betraying your own judgment, into forsaking your own values, and into giving up the power that is rightfully yours to a bunch of political con men, be they Republican, Democrat, whatever. It doesn't much matter which so-called leaders you decide to sacrifice your free will to. Either way, you are betraying humanity by allowing your creativity and productivity, your goodness, to become fuel for the agendas of some of the most power-happy evil people in the world. If that sounds a little too heavy for you, let me say this. I'm not here to make you change your moral compass or your sense of right and wrong. My only goal here is to help you to be true to your own sense of right and wrong by showing you how almost all of the rhetoric you hear about government and politics is drastically warping your perceptions and thereby your behavior in a way that not only goes against your own interests, but against the interests of mankind as a whole. My goal is to help you not have your values and morals corrupted and perverted by the common political mythology. Unlike every politician out there, the last thing in the world I want is for you to substitute my will for yours, to replace your judgment and your values with mine. I'm not here to see if I can control you in mind or in body, or try to bend you to my will, or trick you into doing my bidding. On the contrary, my goal here is only to remove from you the puppet strings which others are using to control you, confine you, restrain you, and subjugate you, mentally even more so than physically. Unlike every political party in history, I'm not offering you a better cage, or a bigger cage, or a more comfortable cage, or a cage with more toys in it. I'm offering you only an open door, a way out of the cage. If you dare to walk out that door and reclaim complete ownership and control of yourself, then I'll be finished. My goal is not to free you so you will serve my purposes or be loyal to me. My goal is to show you the cage that you are in and show you the way out of it so you can serve your own purposes and be loyal to your own values and priorities, to have your life, your time and energy go to the things that you want done, that you think are important. Okay, now, here is the paradigm we all grew up in. There's this thing called government, and it passes laws, imposes taxes, and spends money on things, presumably for the common good. Now, just about everybody knows that government tends to be corrupt and inefficient and wasteful and sometimes downright oppressive and destructive. But the theory is that because we can vote, we the people have the power to fix such problems. In a nutshell, here's how the game called democracy works. We, the people, bicker amongst ourselves about what we want government to do. One group might want tons of funding for the military and not so much for welfare benefits. Another group wants it the other way around, less military, more social programs. This group wants tougher immigration laws. This group wants government controlling these things, but not those things over there. Another group wants it the other way around, laws about this stuff, but leaving individuals in freedom when it comes to those things. When you step into a voting booth, you get to choose which political agenda you want imposed via law enforcement upon the people of the country. Do you want to tax them for more police or for more medical benefits? Do you want government to ban drugs or ban guns? Which behaviors do you want regulated? Which choices do you want the politicians to control? Inside the voting booth, voting for a government that does nothing isn't an option. You won't find any candidate running for office who will say, if you vote for me, I won't tax anyone or anything. I won't spend any money on anything, and I won't tell anyone what to do. People don't run for office. They don't strive to get a hold of the reins of power in order to do nothing with it. And if anyone did, he wouldn't get any votes. People vote because they want their priorities and agendas, their values and beliefs to become, quote-unquote, public policy. That's the game we all grew up in. Fight over who gets to be on the throne and try to get someone up there who will do what you want, will fund the things that you like, will enact laws that you think are a good idea. Democracy is often described in more vague, pleasant-sounding terms, but everyone knows that the reality is it's a battle between all sorts of different groups trying to get their ideas legislated, thereby forcing their ideas on everyone else. And whoever wins, it's called the will of the people. Though, obviously, it's not the will of all the people, because every election, lots and lots of voters lose. They don't get their way. And then for a few years, they get to be subjected to the agenda and ideas of the other people, the ones who won. And in a few years, the game starts all over again. That's the game of democracy. We're taught that not only is all of that legitimate and good, but that this game, democracy, is what makes us free and makes us civilized and shows how wise and advanced and progressive we are. Well, when we come back after this break, we're going to take a look at whether this game called democracy actually fits with your own sense of right and wrong, your own moral code, and whether playing the game of voting is conducive or destructive to the kind of world you want to live in. This is Larken Rose. You're listening to Outside the Cage, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Outside the Cage. I'm your host, Larken Rose. So, it's time to take a look at this game called democracy to see if it's something that helps or hinders your values and priorities and your sense of right and wrong. Because as I've said before, I'm not here to try to foist my agenda and priorities or my values and morals upon you. I'm here to show you that by way of the rhetoric relating to politics and government, you are being tricked into betraying your own values and priorities. So, let's see how this democracy thing matches up to the kind of world you want to live in. And I'm not going to be telling you anything about democracy that you don't already know, but you'll never hear it spoken of this literally or bluntly in the mainstream media. We're going to do this in 3 parts. First, we'll see what you are doing to others when you vote. Then we'll see what others are doing to you when they vote. And finally, we'll take a look at what someone else is doing to both of you and the guy who votes for the other party. But let's start with what you are doing to others when you vote. We got into this a bit on last week's show. For example, pick something you want the government doing, whether it's the military or some welfare program or whatever. Whatever it is, you know there are other people who, for whatever reason, don't want to pay for that, or at least don't want to give it as much funding as you want it to have. Well, when you vote, you're trying to put people into office that you know are going to force those other people to fund those things that they don't want, even things they're morally opposed to. Again, the question is doing so in keeping with your sense of morality and how you think you should treat other people? Do you think it's okay to force them to spend their money on whatever you think is important instead of on what they think is important? Again, you can argue for why they should have the same priorities and values as you, and you might even be right. But in your daily life, you don't go around committing armed robbery just so you can spend other people's money the way you think they should spend it. You know that would be wrong. So why would you imagine it to be right when you vote for someone else to do the same thing for you? If it's bad for you to force your neighbor to fund what you think is important, why is it okay to ask someone else to force the same neighbor to hand over the same money to fund the same things, the things you support, but he doesn't? Does putting the label of law on that and calling it democracy make it okay? And of course, the politicians don't just tax and spend. They also enact lots and lots of other laws telling people how to behave, telling them what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, and what they must do. Again, there's an aspect of this that everybody knows, but which is hardly ever mentioned in the mainstream media. If you support a certain law and it gets enacted, what happens to those who are caught disobeying? You already know the answer. It's no big secret. People caught breaking the law are fined or imprisoned, which means that some of their money is taken or they're put in a cage. Now, there are some cases when that would probably be perfectly in keeping with your moral code. If someone is running around murdering people, for example, I believe, and I'm guessing that you believe, that it's a good thing for other people to stop them, to forcibly capture that person, to stop him from committing any more murder. And so supporting laws against murder and wanting a group of people trained and authorized to stop murderers is in line with your own values and morals. Now, you might not have the ability or the courage to try to chase down a murderer yourself, but I bet you'd feel justified in doing so, in using force to stop him, if you did have the ability. So it makes perfect sense for you to support other people doing that. But there are literally thousands of laws that don't fit this mold. Laws about things you would not feel justified in enforcing against your neighbors on your own. Of the zillions of examples I could use, let's focus for a minute on two common examples. One usually supported by conservatives, one usually supported by liberals. The Republican Party has long been a proponent of the war on drugs, whereby the possession of various mind-altering substances is outlawed. And the Democratic Party has long been pushing for gun control, whereby the possession of various weapons is outlawed. Now, whenever such laws are passed, what happens to offenders who get caught? If someone gets caught with an illegal drug or an illegal weapon, even if that person didn't threaten or harm anyone, what happens to that person? You already know the answer. But again, I like to bypass rhetoric and euphemisms and speak in blunt, literally accurate terms. What happens is that the person possessing the quote-unquote illegal thing is forcibly captured by men with guns and put in a cage for a while, sometimes for years. Everybody knows this, even if they don't usually describe it that way.